Morning, guys. Thought I would come to you this morning to chat about a couple things that have happened. Haven't seen me on social media or posting to the YouTube channel here for about a week. Last week I was out checking trail cameras, and I believe it was actually on Friday, and went in. The 2-track that we hunt on is kind of it's out on public ground, and it's all snowed in, and from the storm that we had a couple weeks ago there with all the rain and the snow, and it just blocked the 2-track off and ended up snapping some trees. So it's about a mile walk, 8/10 of a mile into our first stand. So I'm walking the 2-track, and I'm not sure exactly what happened, if I stepped on a rock or something under the snow, but ended up rolling my ankle. And after doctor's appointments and everything, I ended up in the ER first. Then doctor's appointments later, they found that it was actually fractured in a couple places, but it is now looking like what they found was old injuries, and so we're now seeing a specialist, and they determined that it was just a severe sprain, and I've got some ligament and tendon issues going on, but hopefully it's not broke. They got me in a big old cast and walking cast kind of thing, air cast, and hopefully I'm hoping to maybe be able to salvage what's left of the season, kind of revamp it, if you will. Won't be climbing in any tree stands, but yeah, so that's been kind of keeping us off the social media side of things here. But what I wanted to chat with you guys today about is last week when I went in to get those cards. I started at the on our private partial, and then I went out on the public ground. And when I was going out to get those that morning, I noticed something that I thought I better bring to you guys. We've been using these vertical licking branches, as everybody has seen, for the last couple of years, and this year I've got more out than I've ever had, scattered around on I guess on 4 different properties in a 50-mile radius. And so what I found is I hung some of them on the best place to locate those, which is on in a travel corridor, where a bunch of intersections come together on a trail system. And I don't like we said before, I don't like to really hang them on food plots because they're already going there, but I do have a couple on the edge of food plots on some small partials. But the ticket this time of the year is to have those out and to have those running, so you can take and I refer to them as my inventory sticks. And that's exactly what they are, especially this time of the year. And they're out there for a reason, to see what's left after our, like here in Michigan, the high-pressured gun season, and what is left that had made it through. And surprisingly, this time of the year, what you'll find on those licking branches is a lot of them bucks will show up that you may not have had in the area before. And the reason is, if something was harvested early on, something, or mature buck, let's say, that had that kind of that area locked down as far as maturity and aggression through the rut, if he was taken during their firearm season, late bow season, or the later bow season, and the rifle season here, what I find is that is the perfect time to know who's moved in. So a couple of the areas that we have, I've got 2 new 2-year-olds or 2 new 3-year-olds that moved in, that are going to get a pass the rest of the season. They've been passed a couple times already, and they'll get another pass here. But it's a good thing to know going into next year what you're going to have for mature bucks. So a couple of those, like I said, one in particular, a 3.5-year-old buck. I know he's a 3.5-year-old. I seen him last year as a 2.5-year-old, moved in, and I knew he made it through last year. I got pictures of him in January last year, so I know he made it through to now. or into this season, and I got pictures of him early, and he went kind of obsolete. But I was having pictures of another mature buck. Now he's back in the area, so I think that that I heard wind that maybe that buck in that area had been taken. So yeah, it's a great tool to have. But like I was saying, is when I went in to check these cards, I noticed something that I haven't had an issue with in the past, and I had an issue last week before my injury there, and I'm not sure what the other ones ended up looking like because I never made it there. But so the issue is when you're hanging them on these locations, these corridors and intersections, and in a spot like we always say, easy to get in and out of, to check the trail cameras so you're not busting anything out on non-hunting days, or if you're going in to hunt, start in your number one area that you want to go and check the cards, and then continue on, and then end up sitting where you need to be that night. But what I found is these licking branches were almost touching the ground, and the reason is I hung them on, a couple of them on limbs that I thought were pretty sturdy, let's say large overhanging pine limbs. But to get them out away from the tree, like that 360-degree area, like we always talk, to get them away from the base of the tree so they're out in the middle and they can access them from any side, you're out on the end of those limbs sometimes. And what happened is some of those were crushed, and that snow we had is extremely heavy. A couple of them, the limbs that I had them tied to, snapped off, so they were laying on the ground. And if you want to get the full effect out of these licking branches, you have to have them available for the deer to use. So last week when that hit, it forced a bunch of those licking branches too low to the ground. And what I was finding is, one, because I don't put one out unless I have a camera on it, and what happened is the cameras were shut off or non-active because of the snow load shut brought them branches right down in front of the cameras, and so there was no pictures. Luckily, there was a couple that I had that had just a little gap off to the one side that was still taking pictures of some deer coming in and out, but the other ones there was nothing there. So just a tip that I wanted to bring to you is, this time of the year, make sure that those licking branches are ready for this time of the year, is what I'm trying to say here. And the reason I think I'm going to try to go more too is, especially if you have to suspend those out in the middle of those areas, sometimes you don't have a large enough tree to really a large enough branch, and they get too small, and then if some winter storm hits like we had, that ice first and then that heavy snow, and we only got, in our area we had maybe 4 or 5 inches, but 6 inches I think is what it was, but it was just wet, nasty, heavy, and it shut them off. So what happened to be was a week and a half before the second peak of the second rut, and so my inventory was hurt in a couple of those places. So just a tip so you guys don't have to deal with that. Thing that I've used on a couple of them that did look like they weathered pretty good is, we actually take that black wire that we suspend them with, and we'll go from a heavy-duty tree to another large limb or another heavy-duty tree not too far from it, maybe like a 10-foot or 12-foot span, something like that, and tie them off. And even if you gotta get a little ladder, go up high enough so when you put the licking branches on them, at whatever that sag is between them, that way there's no limbs that can crush and fold and affect that. And then in the center of it, underneath those licking branches, obviously they're mock scrapes, and that keeps those open and active, because the cameras are, to me, they're just as effective now, if not more important, or effective and important this time of the year than they are pre-rut. And the way I say that, a rut, during the rut, pre-rut, let's say. And the reason I say that is because everything is starting to focus back on them feeding patterns. And like we had talked before, don't put the pressure on, let everything relax, no morning hunts, let everything go back so you're hunting in the evenings, and you're getting in there undetected, and that's the time that everything will start showing up that maybe they haven't seen in a little while. The gun pressure has moved those deer out if your habitat isn't correct, and So that is a yeah, I seen that and I thought, boy, I better mention that to a couple. I've got a couple clients that you know, I recommended where to put these licking branches, and they were getting excellent pictures all through the year, and that storm hit and I seen that and I thought, boy, hopefully that didn't affect you know, hopefully that didn't affect anybody out there. And luckily we got some warmer weather, higher winds. It blew all that snow off the limbs. And make sure that you take a peek at those licking branch locations. Make sure they're not snapped off and laying in the scraper on the ground next to them, and they're not doing you any good laying on the ground. So yeah, just wanted to bring that to you. Kind of a recap on the last week here, what we've been dealing with, or what I've been dealing with injury wise, and trying to get to the bottom of that yet. Still here, but yeah. Take a peek at those. If you do hang them going into next year, just keep that in mind, that you want them, you know, suspended from a large tree to a large tree, large limb to large limb, or you want them on the end of a large limb that is out away from those trees, but it's large enough that it's not going to crush if something were to hit, like the bad weather that we had, that ice and rain snow mix that you know, pine limbs are notorious for it because everything sticks to them and they just get really heavy, and hopefully they don't break, but they bend down, and it shuts those mock scrapes off. So just wanted to bring that to you guys. Thanks for all the calls and the emails, clients and friends and family from all over the country here, and calling in, checking on me. So I'm got the cast on, and if I can keep my toes warm, hopefully I'll be back out in the blind here shortly. Thanks, guys.